Greetings and welcome to Maisha Kazini. Today we are so honored to have Dr. Solomon Waliaula, who is a senior lecturer at Masai Mara University in literature. And he has been doing some very interesting research on football. So today we are going to talk about what he has been researching, and I'll put links below the video for you to see how exciting his research is. So welcome, Dr. Waliaula.
Thank you, Prof.
So, I mean, it's obvious from your work that you have been a football fan longer than you have been publishing about it. So maybe you can just give us your background as a young man. You know, what was football? What was it like for you? How were you interacting with football?
Thank you. It's the story of my life, Prof. Because I think since I was able to walk and run around, I was a football player. And it was part of growing up. I grew up in Western Kenya, in the rural place, just kind of a hamlet in Western Kenya, where kids just ran around freely and you play and nobody restricts you from don't go here, don't go there. It was so free. And part of the play then was football, among other games, of course. The girls would play their own games, the skipping on ropes and all that, and the boys playing football. It was nice growing up. That's how I began my football, like other boys. And the activities that we engaged with were football and cattle herding, and it was just like the rhythm of life. Not football as something separate, but football as part of how to grow up in Western Kenya. Yeah. And at some point, then I noticed I had some talent. Yeah, I would do much more than my friends would do. I had more interest. My friends would look for me to pick me up when they have a game. They want me to be there. So then I was struck by this, that maybe there's something more I can do in football. So that's how I began. And I also had challenges right from the beginning. My mother was against me playing football.
She was saying it doesn't. You're not working on your book.
Exactly. There was that dichotomy between football and academics, and there is also the social. There was a social kind of, I would say, maybe a unique social experience in the villages, where there are some families. Let's say they are teachers, they are people who are in formal employment. Yet they are raising their families alongside other people who are just in the village. So there's this thing that you find like in the river between, of like some families want to raise their kids apart from other kids because they are bad influence from that side. So my mother said, okay, you are from this family and your future is academic. Why do you want to hang out with people who are, not heading anywhere? So do you want to be nothing in future? To be a laborer for guys out there? And it was a struggle. I would transgress parental kind of restrictions to play football for a while. Actually, until I was able now to move out of childhood and high school and even university, where my mother was not present. So I would now do my thing, but I still recall and always try to make sense of it and understand my mother's position, because even now as we speak in Kenya, football is not taken seriously. People just think of the elite, school grades. You have to pass KCSE, you have to pass KCPE, you have to go to university, you need to get a job. They don't look at talent and play as possibly one other route towards life, success in life. That is what I saw. And I reflect back and say, okay, it was not unique. It is society. We are like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was there pressure in school also? Because I remember once I tried to play hockey, but my teachers refused. Yeah. So was there pressure within the school, let alone now from home, but within the school, was anyone telling you don't play football? And by the way, were you in the football team?
In primary school is where pressure was, because primary school was near home and our family is known by the school. The teachers know my parents. and they know you come from this kind of family. Your grandfather was a teacher, your father is this and that. What are you doing? You know, this play and football is like, you know, profane, is profanity. You know, like profaning, you are from this other side of the society. You guys are the elite.
Yes.
What are you doing here? So that really hampered my, I would say, maybe progress in football. I always laugh at myself because I think maybe I would have been a better player than even an academic if I just followed my football career religiously. If I was born in Italy, for example, southern Italy, not in western Kenya, I would be playing for Napoli or some other team in Italy or wherever. So school also had that. School had these kids from homes where they thought they were known entities. So they support their sport activities. But kids from homes where they believe they are, you know, grooming them for academic careers, these ones should be, you know, covered up, protected, let them read books, let them focus on the grades, let them be prefects, school prefects. You know, they kind of created a class, some kind of mini class identity.
In CBC, and I remember getting annoyed about that because they were saying, if you don't do well in academics, you will be taken to the talent, the talent pathway. And I was like, no, there should be no distinction. So, and I actually said it's a class distinction. So it has always been there that people from the lower classes, football is for them. People from the educated classes, they pursue academics, basically.
It's sad. And it looks like now football, the hierarchy is that if you are talented in class, you are better off. And if you can't make it there, then you can try anything else, especially football. And because that's for the people who never do well. Huh? You can't do well. So this is the blue collar career for you. And even then, they wouldn't support it. It was not supported.
Even those guys from the families that matter. Those kids don't come from families that matter. So why should football be supported? It's better you send the money to an elite national school. Kenya is so interesting. So now, just coming to your studies. So you did literature in university at undergraduate and master's. When did you start this focus on football? At what stage?
Now, that is a good question because for me, I don't even know how I can answer this. It looks like it was just always there. Football was just hanging around there in my everyday experience. I went to Moi University and just did the normal mainstream, you know, literature and English as a teacher to be coming from a teacher family. So I was just following the path that my family had followed. I did my master's in literature. And my research for my thesis was on drama, East African drama. So I did something on...
imagine now.
Yeah, it's so far away from me now. If you told me about Uganda and Imbuga and Ngugi, Mali when I want, that stuff, it looks so far away. Although I teach this I still teach, but it looks so far away. So I did that. But while I was doing this master's, the story began. You know, that time, now the popular culture trends were changing in Kenya. The year 2000, turn of the millennium, that is. We had now a global sports media penetrating, you know, East Africa, and we had now the DSTV. We had we had that coming in, and we had European football coming in. We even had now previously just radio African football now was on TV also. So there was now we could watch football, European football in school. I'm doing my master's, and because as a master's student, we're always in school. We don't close. You are just there. You do your coursework. You're writing your thesis. You're always there. And there were some undergraduate students of engineering who were never closed school. So we were always there with them. And I was not too old. I was still young enough to fit within them. So we had this, now it became a kind of a fad. It was a trend, European football. 2000, around 2005, it was really a trend. Arsenal Football Club was winning everything, it had black players. So you were told Arsenal is the team to support, and There's the Thierry Henry, and there's Kanu, Nwankwo Kanu from Nigeria. There's all these people. There is Manu. We are hearing these stories now. Global, culture, and typical young people then riding on this wave. We now got interest in following this league. So I would study. I'm doing my master's, but I have this side, like a side dish, always following European football. And that captured me so much. And I was also playing football. Out there, we play football, what we call pickup football. Football for fun, no referee, no nothing. Just playing, disorganized, but somehow organized in a way. So around that time then, I took more interest in this, because in class also, remember I was good in theory, very good in theory in class. So I began making connections between the theory in class and these things we are doing. And we had read a bit of postmodernity, a bit of, we had a lot of theory on the postmodern and the texts and the way texts are changing in the postmodern age. And we had read a bit of this, it's called Apadurai, Juna Apadurai, and this idea of globalization and the disjunctures. Because I would see the way we were following European football in Eldoret, at the university campus, in the common room, was different from perhaps what they were doing in Europe, in the stadiums.
Yeah.
We were creating our own cultures of watching. We had our own stories. We were identifying with clubs and saying, okay, I am Madrid, I am Bayern Leverkusen, I am Man U, I am Arsenal. I began seeing connections, but just kept quiet because I was doing masters in literature anyway.
In drama.
I kept quiet, but I saw those. I was reading drama, Uganda, a lot of it, Ugandan history and Idi Amin and the burdens. But I was seeing there's a lot of connection between what we read in theory and what I'm seeing out there.
Yeah.
But now I didn't have anybody to trust our lecturers there and tell them, okay, look here, I'm doing this masters, but I am seeing that the theories you learned in class, I see them seem to be like applying directly to what is developing in the common room, especially. But we are having now people creating narratives around this European football.
Yeah.
And they are becoming like not just consumers of football, but using this now to create other cultures. And this is what you guys told us in class. But I did not say that. I just kept quiet, and being the good boy I was then, went on with the masters and finished it.
Yeah.
Finished the master's degree. But something changed along the way. There was around that time in 2005, 2004, 2005, 2006, there was one of the members of staff in the department, that is Dr. Joyce Nyairo, had some linkage.
Famous.
Yeah, she was into these things way back, into cultural studies. She had, I think, moved there as a scholar, not lecturer, but scholar. So she had these links with a South African university called WITS. That is the WITS. And there was a project that had come up on what they call South to South exchange. And it was sponsoring East African cultures, emerging East African cultures, popular cultures. And after I had finished my master's, I was just around there, hanging around there, and there was a call for people to do proposals, and there was a chance that they would go to South Africa for 1 month and do a workshop on East African cultures and end up presenting a paper, and you never know what could also follow through that. So I tried my luck. I did a proposal on what I had followed now, not my master's now, what I was following in the common room watching football, and something about now consumption of European football. And I talked about the creative aspect of consumption of European football. And I was using that small context of the university as my field, because I had been there almost all my life. And there was somebody called Professor Gude. Maybe you've heard of him.
Yes, I've met him. Gude. I was invited to, where was it? Was it BIDS? Yeah. So I met him there.
So he was a big guy in what I became finally. Even now, what I am now, I think he has a big role to play in that, because he was part of that. When we sent those abstracts, mine was accepted also among the others, and I was shocked. So I was just trying this. I didn't try to extend my master's thesis. I tried something I was doing on the side, and this is what is being taken seriously. Okay, so I said, fine.
Yeah.
So let's see how it goes. So we went with a number of staff members from the department. Then at Moi, we were selected. We went to South Africa, and I was there for 1 month at WITS and made that presentation. And the staff there was so, excited about this. This is nice. How did you come up with this? I said, you say, this was the, by the way, while I was doing East African drama, I was also watching football.
That one. That is so fun. I can't even imagine.
I was also following maybe East African cultures, perhaps, to make it sanitized. And this is what I saw, and it interested me, and it had some theoretical kind of implications. I could see this connecting to the theory we learn in class, and this is what I have done. But I told them, to be honest, it is not what I plan to do for a PhD. No, look at me, because I knew this is not serious. It's just not, this. I would have told me no. And Isabel Hoffman told, this is what you need to do. This is a PhD you can do. And because you've started, it must go all the way.
Oh, you were telling them you can't do football for
I told
PhD.
them no. I told them this is just this because it's not. I was coming from Kenya, and in Kenya you don't do football literature department. You can't convince anybody that I'm doing literature when talking about football. You know, I knew that. I knew I still no chance of presenting a concept, even just a concept, and successfully going through. So they told me no. They told me this is doable. That's where I got my courage. I picked some books there. There was Tom Odhiambo, you know Tom Odhiambo?
Yeah.
Then he was still there. He helped me get some books there. So when I came back to Kenya, I now got serious and got into the program, PhD program in Moi, literature then, and did my proposal, following what they had told me down there. And
what happened?
It did not work. It did not work. It did not work because after I made that presentation, I was asked now, where is the literature here? So where are the texts? So are you sure that you are still with us in literature? Or now you are in anthropology or somewhere else? No. So I was given many questions. I would admit I gave up because I didn't have any proper, let's say, sponsorship or patronage that would let me go on with my project. I gave up and said, fine, I'll go back and sit down and think of another more formal and acceptable topic. Even just maybe now say African drama and just extend this narrative of drama. But then I think
it's drama. It's a performance and there's an audience.
You know, anyway. I was not so equipped then to, not just equipped, but also in my position. You know, there's the power relations in a defense. You cannot take your argument so far. You know, so I just gave up. But at that time, I was still following football, remember? Still following the watching, and sometimes I just listen over the radio and all that. So along the way, an idea struck me again. They said I must get texts. They said, we want to see text. If you have no text, you have no case. We want to see texts that have boundaries, have margins, and you are reading them as a literary scholar. And that somebody else can read also, and therefore guide you. But if you're talking about this open, you know, audiences watching European football and creatively constructing texts, we are not sure that we are in business. So I went back and thought about it. I had given up. But there's a guy who assisted me to get back on track. He died. He should rest in peace. Mohamed Juma Njuguna. You remember him? Mohamed Juma Njuguna. He was a radio presenter. Famous radio presenter, Mohamed Juma Njuguna.
Yeah, I remember him.
He was a commentator, and he was really, you know, lively. He was fun. He would do the play-by-play radio commentary of European football, but actually just create fun out of it. Is just creating text, talking, greeting people, bragging, history here and there. So someone told me, okay, why can't I now go back and tell them, okay, now I've come back with a text. I have come back and I am going to have these audio texts. I'm going to have these recordings of Juma Njuguna and read them. Read them like you read texts. These are oral texts. And I will read them maybe stylistic, literary stylistics, if you like, and I can get where I want to get. Then along the way, I also remembered we had KBC or VOK radio commentaries. Those days, Mambo Mbotela and those other guys, Billy Omala, they also had commentaries. So I thought of making it even better. Why can't I compare? Why not compare the classical radio commentary with the current radio commentary, which I thought was really postmodern, quote unquote. This guy was like covering, he's watching a football match and he's not in the stadium, he's watching. So it was like transmedia. You watch a televised football match and you mediate through radio. So that for me was interesting. And I was comparing that with now these other guys who are watching in Nyayo Stadium and sending it live to us in the villages. So that became an idea, concretizing, but I didn't tell anybody. I wrote a proposal, another proposal on my own. I took time, about 3 months. So when I was done, I just tried. I tried it out there was a guy in Germany that time who had gone there on DAD scholarship and had sent me some links of professors who work in African studies, Bayreuth, Goethe University in Frankfurt, Mainz, a number of them, Leipzig. So I sent, I think, to 3 universities at a go. I sent a letter with a copy of my proposal and requesting that I was just being, I think, adventurous, that they be my host professor as I apply for that scholarship. I was just dreaming, dreaming big.
Yeah.
You know what
That's
happened?
What football is about. It's about dreaming.
So what happened? I got a response from one of the professors from Mainz, University of Mainz.
Yeah.
He said he was interested. He said, "Where have you been?" I am doing a project in East Africa that is about almost close to this.
Yes.
Doing a project on VJs. These people who watch.
Oh yes.
VJing, people who watch this guy called, there's a guy in Kenya famous for that. He watches Chinese movies and translates to Kiswahili and starts giving, kind of like voice over. VJing, yeah? So he said he has been doing the Tanzanian one, the Kenyan one, and he can see half of my proposal was talking about Juma Njuguna kind of giving an audio account of European football between TV and radio. So for him, that really was interesting. And he said he's interested in being my host supervisor. I should apply for that, and he's sure I'll get. So I did. I applied for the DAD scholarship and got it. And that's how the story started now. So I got the scholarship, and people back in the department somehow now thought there's something in here. So they said,
now
okay.
That somebody else has accepted.
Somebody else, yeah. But he was coming from media anthropology.
Okay.
Anthropology, not literature. So, but they accepted. They accepted this and said, okay, now, because you have been here with us, it can't be full DAD scholarship. It has to be sandwich. It's going to be a Moi University PhD. Half done here, half done in Germany. I said, fine, as long as I am able to go through. That's how it happened. And the rest of it, as they say, is history. Because from there on now, I went deep into football as a literature student, but now in football. Yeah. So I don't even know what I am now. Because I have done so much now in football commentary, identities, stuff.
I checked you on Google Scholar. You published so much.
But not in literature. So
not be able to teach on football, course on football at all. Not even one class. Have you?
I have tried. Okay. Now there's a course called oral literature. comparative oral literature, which I have been trying to like twist gradually to get examples from the popular. You know, we talk about the liveliness of oral literature. It's not like it's just in the deep bush, proverbs and narratives from the bush to be collected. You know, oral literature is living. It's in constant production. So I have tried to get examples from my experience in academics now in football, audiences, and you know, I try to fit in, but it's not like I want to. It's like I can do much more. But our current curriculum, the way it's structured, you cannot bring in avant-garde changes. Why? Because our curriculum is based on clients. They ask you, who are our possible clients? Who will take this course? When they take it, what will they do with their lives? And if you get only 4 or 5 students, who will teach them? Because we will not pay somebody to teach 5 students. That is not economic. You know, that is the story that we have to live with.
So even supervision, nobody has decided to do a master's in football whom you can supervise.
After me, nobody. It's just now in Germany. In Germany, I have had people still doing things I'm doing, and I work with them because I even went back for a postdoc for 2 years, and I was working with a student who was doing a PhD then, and she trusted me so much, and I was helpful to her. But now back home, we still have our students doing things on just mainstream literature, the text as we know it. And if it's oral literature, it's proverbs as we know them, narratives and songs as we know them. Even popular culture, it's not possible to twist a student to do something on songs, popular songs. It's hard. It's hard to, but maybe moving forward.
What do the students say? Do they say they would be interested in doing a class like that on popular culture, sport and culture? Nothing. Or they just don't know there's that option?
Now, the students, given our, I don't know about where you teach, but given the structures of curriculum development in our universities, they don't have much say. Students don't have much say in how the curriculum is supposed to grow. They don't. So whenever they have time to evaluate the lecturers, they just evaluate you based on your delivery of the content that you give and your punctuality. Do you come to class every week? And do you stay there all the time? But they don't get a chance to like suggest, okay, now we think even this popular culture and media, social media, we could have a course, for example, on digital media and popular culture, such a thing. No, we don't have that. It should have been part of the, I don't know.
What we have, because our private university is based on the, what is it called? The liberal arts system. So within each program, there's a class called special topic. So that is the class where a lecturer can say, there's something which is not covered in depth in the curriculum, so I'm going to do it this semester. So that's the one I've been using. I've taught on social media. What else have I done? I did public narratives last semester. So that's the one you do, but and then what I usually do is that I have to advertise so that I can get students to come. But even then, it's very difficult to sell it to the students. They are not, it's so out of their experience to tell them, oh, we can do something on social media. It just sounds like Greek. So in the end, I ended up teaching a major social media class to a Canadian student. Any innovation, you end up doing it for universities abroad, and then in Kenya, you just do the mainstream African novel,
It's strange. Because even now people read so much of social media more than they read the African novel in print.
Well, they are gatekeepers. So do you think that do we have to teach it as a separate program, like a BA in cultural studies, or what would be the suggestion? Or we just create electives on those units? I don't know. How would we do that to bring some of these topics into the Kenyan curriculum?
I think for me, I don't know whether it's the way other people think, because we can't just start in the deep end. We can't start by having a program on BA cultural studies or BA popular culture. We start by having topics introduced in the existing courses, like maybe literature, like the novel and all that. We just have a clever kind of infiltration and gradually getting maybe 30% of this being digital, being about what is changing. What is changing. But still, there's too much policing. There's too much policing of the curriculum development. So if we were allowed to just allow this to come in, and they allow us to do proper benchmarking, so that if you have a program, let's say from Leipzig University, that has this, it works for them. Why not they allow us to have to work for us? The other thing, of course, is to delink the job market from the teaching, because the curriculum for us is so much based on the job market, and any innovation is frowned upon because of the implications perceived on the job market. Yet, currently, people are making money out of YouTube, out of small videos, out of people even now get jobs, formal jobs in the media, out of being comedians. So I don't know whether we still have that straight line between what you learn in school and what you do out there. I don't know anymore.
I don't understand. Anyway, it means that even our conception of the job market is very conservative. Even though we are saying that there's all these things out there, at the end of the day, it's still a very 1960s kind of engineering, law, medicine teaching. You know,
STEM.
Nobody sees anything outside those things. What?
Yet people are making money. People make money so much nowadays out of creativity. The digital medium. People make so much money and create careers. So I don't know whether we just are conservative, and we are not so sure about, you know, we are so hesitant to like make a step of faith, a leap of faith into the unknown. We are hesitant.
Which is so ironical when you're thinking education is where we are supposed to innovate.
Now, education is also kind of like, it is so policed, the kind of education. For us, it's not like to bring out, because if you define education from the Greek word, is to bring out. To bring out that which is inside. For us, we are kind of like determining what should be brought out. There's so much to be brought out. There's so much in there, and most of it we suppress. So it's not education. It is some kind of, I don't know how to define that. It's not proper education. Until now you hear CBC. CBC is going to be like now to bring out. Huh?
It won't.
Finally.
It won't. It won't, because of that division. It still divides talent from academics. So what is going to happen is that the kids who don't do well will be pushed to talent. And then now you underfund that, you don't support, and so nobody will want to go to talent.
Actually, they socially profile them.
Yes.
They profile them as failures, academic failures.
In fact, that's what KICD was saying. In fact, I was so shocked. I was saying, just listen to yourself. You can't say that if you don't do well, become a footballer. What are you saying? What are you saying? And you see, that carries on now. In fact, now we'll go talking about the real football. It goes into football because when you see that the people playing football are the lower class, they are not important, then you don't fund it. Yeah, you don't support it. Now let's go to football. We can finish with education. So do you think, and I asked you this when I had called you, do you think this shift in the mediatization of football, do you think it had something to do, how did it affect Kenyan football? And what would you say are the challenges facing Kenyan football?
Yeah, it's a big problem, I would say, but also maybe an opportunity. When now we had this opening of the media, global sport media, so that now Kenyans would access European football. Obviously, there was a challenge to Kenyan football because now we had spectacle that was better funded and people were captured. And there was this now creation of an audience community that was, if you use that language of the academics, interpolated, so that they identify with. They became Arsenal, Man U, whatever. So it was like a religion now. It became like a religion. And that was, I would say, negative in one sense to Kenyan football because it came when we were going downhill, Kenyan football. Kenyan football from 1999, 2000, coming out just the whole of the new millennium. We've been doing badly because of politics in football and because of underfunding football, poor government policy on sport, just like we talked about it. So nobody bothers about nurturing talent from the grassroots in football. Nobody cares about Kenya's maybe image in sport and the diplomas we get from that and all these things that are good from sport. Nobody talks about that. It went with ironically, the Moi era. I think in Africa, football has benefited only when it is being misused. When it's being misused, that's when it works. From the days of Mobutu in Zaire, he misused football. He was a dictator. He misused football, but took them to the World Cup. Zaire. He used football. He liked football and sport, but of course misused it. Populism and all that. Moi too used football. And it was so good. We had everything. He was a sportsman number one, footballer number one. And we would go to the stadium and would support. Moi Golden Cup was there. And there was some money in football. There was patronage. People were trying to emulate Moi by patronizing, clubs. Sambu patronizing FC Leopards for long. We had guys like Jobo Mino patronizing Maya. We had Matiba, late Matiba. Who was really in football. So it became kind of a football flat in Kenya when it was used wrongly, quote unquote, when it was used as part of the populist agenda. But when now we had this democracy, multi-party and everything, I don't know what happened because football began now going down. No politician was going to use football. They would use parties and tribes. So it kind of went down. Yeah, there was no patronage. There was no patronage as real because patronage now, there were other mechanisms of patronizing, getting people. Just tribe, even just raw tribe. Party, the other things. But that time Moi had stifled tribalism, really, kind of in a way. And people had to find ways of still getting it back. Football. So football worked for us. We had radio commentaries nicely. KBC was covering live football, covering money to cover football in the stadium. And people would follow Gor Mahia, FC, Shabana in the villages. They would follow football because Kenya was sponsoring it through the media. But that sponsorship went, it went. So when this European football came in, it found an open space, a vacuum. And just entered, there was space, unoccupied. Nobody was there. So we just had Arsenal coming in, Man U coming in.
People waiting for football.
And there's no football. It found nothing. It's different from Nigeria, for example, or Tanzania, those countries where football went on somehow. Up to now, you'll find Tanzanians following football closely. They support football. Even Kenyan players go to local football. Even Kenyans go to play football in Tanzania. Yeah, that they are paid in Tanzania. Kenyans go to play in Tanzania as pro.
Paid, yes.
They put football in Tanzania, Kenyans. Kenyans go to Zambia to play football as paid. And Zambia and Tanzania have a lower economy than Kenya. Yeah? You agree with me? But Kenyans go there and they are paid to play. They make careers out there.
There's no, and I've seen you arguing about this, about saying that people who are fans of English football are necessarily feeding into imperialism. But what you're saying is you can actually have this European football going on and still have a very strong support for local football. It's not one or the other.
Yes, because I have seen that work in other countries apart from Kenya, where we have support, like in Nigeria, government supports football directly. They pay clubs some money to run. So clubs get money from, they fund football directly across the regions. So, but the other problem, of course,
they do better actually. Even continentally, their football is stronger than ours.
Definitely, because the government actually invests in football there and supports it. And also, ironically, they support even those regional kind of like, distinctions. The clubs from this part, from let's say the Igbo part, the Yoruba part, the North, they still allow those identities to play out because those are very important for football. Those identities, regional identities are very important. So they fund, but turn the other eye, they turn a blind eye to the ethnicity in football.
The politicized one.
Yeah, it's good for football because this is the only way you can have people identifying with this Kwara United, for example, or whatever, or Enugu Rangers. There are people who will say, this is Igbo. This is Hausa in the north. This is that. And that is good for football, depending on the society that you're talking about. Let's say Tanzania, because of their lack of their Ujamaa that was there for a long time, they're able to have clubs that are not ethnic.
Tribal.
They're able to have Simba and the Yanga and the Cut Across. Yeah, because of that, yeah.
But even like English football, football is town specific.
It's tribal.
In fact,
actually,
that's why they were fighting. So it's tribal in a way because it's town specific.
So tribal. Actually, there is this hatred. They have this tribalism in football much more than we have us tribalism open, because like Liverpool and Manchester United are like rival clubs. Each of them hates the other, wishes the other to fail, just because they have this, inter-ethnic, quote unquote, distinction. Yet it fuels their passion for the game. If it's controlled.
When you have ethnicity in play, play means that the rules are fluid. You can have stars either way. So it's not the same as ethnicity in politics and money, because you're not fighting for resources. And in football, the game ends. Yeah, so you don't have to fight over. The fighting is with the ball on the pitch.
I get your point.
As opposed to guns.
You have put out the point very nicely. Very nicely, because the football has kind of like clauses, there are boundaries of the ethnicity. It's performed.
Yes.
Starts and ends. But for us, like now in Kenya, we have an open, we have an open play ethnicity, which is tied to resources, tied to power, tied to who gets this or the other. So it is difficult for us to even now go back to ethnicity that is in safe places, like in Gor Mahia or FC or Shabana, or have a club in Eldoret called maybe Raymond. We had KCC, we had Raymond's. We don't have that anymore. Even if it was there, it's overtaken by the bigger ethnicity. But I have been arguing with people, because people say either way, European football has destroyed African football, has destroyed African identification with football and culture. Fine, I agree with them. I see where they're coming from. They come from this one side of cultural studies, of looking at, the link between commerce and culture and art.
Yes.
And these guys, the Frankfurt School of Marxists, who say cultures are constructed and they are by people in hegemony, and they are made to control other people, and therefore we consent to this domination through culture. And this thing of cultural imperialism through media. Yeah, I agree. And there's so much that has been done in that area, football studies, European football, and cultural imperialism. And they have a point, because
yes,
you would say maybe true when you package European football to be the football and other football to be sub football, then it comes with the culture. It comes with everything else and kills our own football. That is a point that I cannot dispute. But I have to also say, and I keep arguing, it has been my thesis, that we also have another strand of cultural studies that talks about now, we have this idea that cultures don't just dominate other cultures without any form of resistance or translation or adaptation.
Yes,
exactly. There is so much. There is disjunctures in global culture. If I quote Apadurai, there is so much of people tinkering with what they receive and creating things out of it. So I've been following that, because like European football, for example, if you come to Kenya, to be specific, it has been useful in some ways. We have had people plowing into the pre-existent video show rooms, the small video show rooms. We used to go and watch videos, People now put football there, and it's business. Somebody is showing football as business, it's like video. And then it's in the slums sometimes, where people can't afford to watch football on television, can't afford leisure of any form. Now they have leisure in the slums, affordable leisure. It's again a way of creating some room for ventilation. People are so oppressed in the slums. Life is so tough. So over the weekend, there's football to watch, identify with one team and say, we are Arsenal, and maybe Arsenal wins. There's a sense in which they ventilate. This becomes an avenue for people performing their anxieties and stresses, and just in a way, I would say productive. And thirdly, I would say also, because we're in a global age now, and we are talking about identity. And identity, finance, people say it's, the cultural anthropologists say it is supposed to be, we have distinct identities, African and European, and that these varieties cannot change, and that we only have to imbibe the values of Africa, values of Luo, values of Luhya, and these values, when they encounter other values, can be tampered with. And that's cultural
purity. It's a purity, cultural purity.
Cultural anthropologists say that. And they say now, if we have football, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of culture. And this symbol must be purified, must remain pure. If you interfere with the symbol, you are interfering with the culture. So there's that argument. If you can go deep into anthropology, Clifford Geertz, and those things he talked about, how now you can have a deep play. You can study these cultures like texts and identify the pure working mechanisms, values, and everything. That is one way of seeing things, and I don't agree with it myself. I subscribe to the other view that says cultures are kind of dynamic, and cultures are performed, and cultures, are done. There's in culture, these people if you remember Stuart Hall, these guys that came up with the cultural studies in Birmingham University, and talking about this unfinishable project of identity. You can't finish it. It's always in the making.
Yes.
And we always get new resources to perform identities. And that we don't have a pure identification. each circumstance calls upon you to get new resources to engineer yourself. So I think European football has come in and is a new resource in performing identities for young people in Africa. It gives them new avenues to reimagine themselves, higher than what they are. It gives them a chance to just feel nice being connected to the global, the global cultural industry, and not in the sense that they are now feeling small because it's not theirs, but they use it their own way.
Yes.
Actually, there are so many, like in my publications, I've tried to trace a number of now cultures which have come because of European football. And these are really Eldoret cultures that start here. Vernacular cultures that started here. Yeah, so I don't know. And I therefore don't blame European football entirely. I know of guys now who have, they visit people who are sick and all that because they are following the same club. They clean the city. They say Chelsea fans are cleaning the city this day. Now it has been, I know of some fans in Turkana, Lodwar, Chelsea fans in Lodwar who had an event. They came together to clean the city in Lodwar. So I said, okay. So now, is it now Europe anymore? It's just Kenya. We're just using Chelsea as a club to sort out our own issues here and to create communities. Yeah, I have seen people doing business because of European football. They get networks, social networks, and communities form around the clubs they support. So I have tried to say a few things about it in my writing, and I still try to come up with this argument that fine, European football is kind of like foreign and is a new culture, but we are adapting to it, we are owning it our own ways,
But you've made an important point that I don't think the problem of not supporting Kenyan football is a cultural problem. I think it's a political one, because if we are not putting the resources into football to develop the clubs, then you can't blame people for not following the football. They're going to follow the football that is easily accessible, and easy access requires resources. But we are not, in fact, I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. You mentioned that, multipartyism kind of removed the material support for football. That means that the government was not really, just explain what football was like before the end of the 90s, and then what happened to Kenyan football after that.
A club that has remained there because of their own unique circumstances. That is Gor Mahia.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Gor Mahia kind of has remained there somehow. They survive. But let me go back, I'll come again. Okay. Before 1990s, football was about patronage, political patronage. There were patrons who willingly spent money to support football. And they were patrons because they are also kind of putting themselves in positions where they can get political, capital and, end up in government or something like that. So it was one way in which a populist government would run, the everyday kind of like, I would say method in which you can carry favor with the public is by supporting, football, and the stadium becomes one of the obvious captive audiences that you can address. You just appear there. You don't even have to campaign. You just appear there during a game. That's enough for you to get the votes, So there was patronage, and it was a win-win. Win-win because on one side, the patrons were winning in politics, in business, and football was winning also. So it was a win-win kind of, but not win everything.
Let me just ask, wasn't there a problem of a politician will fund a football team, and then when he leaves, when he finally wins his political seat, he abandons football? There wasn't that problem?
It wasn't, because then there was no avenue of even changing parties or doing anything. So if like Sambu, for example, Peter Sambu was the patron of AFC Leopards for a long time.
Yeah.
And he was not even Bukusu. He was always winning in a Bukusu region using AFC Leopards. But soon after, now things changed. It became hard for him to win, because now they knew him as Tachoni Bukusu. And you're Tachoni, we can't vote for Tachoni, we vote for Bukusu. But before then, they knew Sambu is the guy, he's supporting AFC. And, you know, in a sense, it was hard for you to leave that golden goose that lays the eggs. Yes. Football was like golden goose. People stuck to football because it was one way in which they were guaranteed, you know, a fan base and votes. Much as it was working in the bigger picture was not okay. There was no pluralism, there was no democracy, but it worked that way. How I wish there was a way in which the government also just tried to follow through, have some structures, because that was so unstructured. Yes. That was so temporary and so circumstantial. It would not be sustainable. But if we had a proper now structure coming from that, and say maybe the top 10 clubs that you have 20 clubs in the league normally in Kenya. So those that become top 20 will be funded some money. We fund them somehow for travel, kit, for football, all these things, the basics of football, and for salaries for players. What if that happened, like it happens in Nigeria, that the team that perform well will be funded? So first of all, it creates competition. Guys try to join the top. That would work. And secondly, the government would just have this, now the grassroots support, because this football in Kenya has to start from the grassroots, not the clubs up there, it's the grassroots. Grassroots support. It was there when guys were going there to start tournaments just before elections. They have a tournament, the villages play each other, they see players come through. But now that is no longer there. And even the secondary school, primary school, really gone down from where they were in the 90s and 80s. Those were like nursery beds for football, real nursery beds. In high school, if you are seen to be liking football and doing badly in class, you're on your own. There's no link between high school and clubs. There was a link between, for example, Kakamega High School, Musingu High School, and the Western clubs from Western Kenya, and then AFC Leopards. So you will see like they have a nursery bed. They're taking kids from high school to clubs to play. Our focus has changed. Their focus has changed. So I don't know if I've answered you, but what I want to emphasize is that now, post, let's say 1992, the avenues now have narrowed down to just, I don't know, political parties and just maybe networks and maybe even thuggery, other methods, and football has suffered. Football has suffered, in Kenya.
But you know, it's what I was telling you, it's not just football, all culture has suffered.
Yes. Culture has suffered in the process.
Because I remember, like when I was in undergraduate, there were many cultural activities. I watched so many plays around that time. Now you can barely get anything except, of course, those comedy kind of dramas. But I think it's all cultural performance has basically, I don't know what has happened. I think it's also the ideology of the arts don't matter, which became very strong once this business neoliberal thing came up. So also people now started saying, you know, what's the point of the arts? There's no market. So I don't know.
Exactly.
But the cultures have very, very much, public culture has suffered a lot. So we are back to our screens, and I guess now that's even football, that's what's happening. But people, like you're saying, people are still innovating new ways to come together.
But I think also, maybe I don't know how you see this, like in South Africa, I have seen they are trying to have commerce and culture working side by side. We don't have that in Kenya. You know, cultures depend so much on commerce. on the industry.
Yes.
It's all the time, this bank, Telcom, Nedbank, they have this tournament, they have these 8 teams playing each other. So there's always football going on. But for us in Kenya, we don't have KCB, for example, having a tournament, Safaricom having a tournament or sponsoring a club. We have a disconnect. I think our ideology here is vulgar capitalism, profit. And the profit without also minding about, I think, giving back to art, for example, and seeing how art can help capitalism also in a way. Capitalism also needs art. And out there, they use art so much. Football benefits so much. European football benefits from gambling companies. The gambling companies are sponsor football in Europe. We don't have companies sponsoring football.
They're not, you see, those companies are required. They're required to send their money specifically for sports. But here, and you know, the gambling companies make a lot of money. I don't think they have been forced to put that money into arts and entertainment, which they should.
It should be a circuit. It should be a circuit. They make profits and plow it back.
Yeah.
And get more. It works like that. But in Kenya, we don't have it that way. People, even wealthy people like in Congo, there's a wealthy guy who supports a club, TP Mazembe. A very wealthy guy. There's somebody in South Africa called Motsepe. He supports a team called this team that is in Pretoria, Mamelodi Sundowns. Is owned by an individual. The individuals out there who are very wealthy and decide just to invest in a club, perform their identity, but also invest there and get profits. We don't have that in Kenya. And we have people who are rich enough to just have a club of their own and support it. They are. We don't have them. Nigeria, we have guys.
I think it's not politically beneficial to them to support. But I think one of the problems with our business class is that they want quick profits, no fuss, no complication. So sponsoring a club is a roundabout way of getting there. I think they're too impatient. They need the money now.
But they have the money already. They are just now need to give a face to that money, to be seen out there. I don't know, because that also is for me, in my observation, because I'm comparative, I try to see out there clubs supported by wealthy people, how they do well, and they gain. Eventually they gain. Even materially they gain their investment. But for us, people, as you're putting it, they are so quick and suspicious of any roundabout method of investment. It is suspected to be, it can fail. It can't fail. I think it's just people changing their mindset and seeing the arts as an area you can invest in and benefit cultural capital and social capital and financial capital, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that would happen if you're able to teach your class, but you see now you can't even teach that class on football. Anyway, tell us about the time when Gor Mahia won the, is it Africa Cup winners?
Yeah, Mandela Cup.
You know, how is it that we were able to win a continental cup?
1987, huh? That was the height of Kenyan football, 1987. We even had, there was a African Games, all African Games hosted in Kasarani then. Remember Kasarani was just new then.
Yes.
That been built a new stadium and we are hosting these African Games. It was not football, it was games generally. And we were to the final. Even we go to the final of the Africa Games, we lost to Egypt narrowly. So I think that time, all these factors of patronage and football were now in sync. Because Gor Mahia was like even Moi's own pet club. We believed that as of FC Leopards. We believed Moi likes Gor Mahia.
And he did like you guys.
He did like FC Leopards, but he knew what he was doing. He was just being a populist. He was looking for the lower vote and all that. So Gor won that cup because of the, first of all, the extreme ethnic identity that Gor had. Just like AFC Leopards, they're so ethnic. Actually, virtually, almost all the players were Luo. Almost all the players of Gor Mahia then were Luo. Yeah, from the Luo community. They are just playing for the cultural identity. And secondly, there were channels of sending money to Gore, supporting Gore. And they would say, you Luo lecturers from Moi University, this is the much you produce to support Gore. So Gore had support from the Luo community, full support. They still do. They still do. They still do get support from the Luo community, so much of it. So all those factors considered, it was their time to get there. But I think after that, the typical corruption bug beat them. Yeah, beat them, and they are now down. They are struggling, but not as well as they were that time. I think the Kenyans were not so corrupt in the 80s.
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, anyway, I think we were not as desperate to steal. Maybe that's, anyway.
Or to get rich quickly.
AFC, they didn't have that kind of support.
AFC Leopards, I think we have to go back to even to the ethnic community as it is. It's, in terms of how it's structured, it's not one ethnic community.
Oh, yes.
It's a number of separate ethnic communities that came together for political convenience, I think. You've seen that even in politics, in open politics. The lawyers don't say that. They speak in one voice as people say in Kenya.
Yeah, I heard actually complaining. Yeah.
That is something we don't know how to get out of our, identity. So it had these problems from the beginning, FC Leopards. But they had two clubs. There was FC Leopards and there was Imara United. Imara was just Maragoli, but they put I behind to make it look less ethnic. It was Imara, but for the Maragolis alone. And then there was a Baluya for now FC Leopards. So FC came together fine. They had this patronage from Sambu and other guys, but because of the reality of our fragmented ethnicity as Luya, we have had problems getting sustained patronage. Nobody wants to come in and say, I want to support this. I have seen sometimes politicians come in, Mudavadi comes in, people come in now and then, but they don't feel so, there's no commitment. So it has been, we lost that chance to have the club, gel together, maybe even just gel the community together, make it look like more solid than it is. Gore is different.
What would you say about clubs like Mathare United?
I liked it because they are good. They are good community-based clubs, and they are doing very well. But I think also the problem, like for Mathare, was interference. That is my reading. That Bob Munro guy was doing a good job.
Yes.
And the club produced good players from the slums.
Many went out. Quite a number went out.
Definitely, but the problem with the Kenyan whatever is that if something starts working, then people come in there to see what they can make out of it.
That's what I've noticed. Immediately it starts working. We just see all these people coming. It's so insane.
Mathare was working. Mathare was working. It was working very well. There's even now Sofapaka, which is supposed to be working so well for the less privileged people, and the church is involved in NGO. But again, guys want to see if you sell a player, how much money will make, who will pocket the money. That is the problem we have. It can't move. Management is corrupted.
I think anytime you get people, this is what I started to suspect. Anytime people come together, somebody else sees an opportunity to make money from.
That is it.
You're talking sports, you're talking club, you're talking church. People see captive audiences, so they can't make money from the audience.
Even church, sometimes that's what happens. If it's working, then there is money there to be taken, and somebody comes to take the money. And in football, if you do that, it dies.
Take money from the support of the club, or they're selling the club to a corporate sponsor, saying, I can connect you to Mathare FC if you come. I know the people there, but you have to pay me. So, I mean, that's how group projects always crumble very fast. Immediately they start to pick up
Exactly, like AFC Leopards, I can tell you because I've been a fan and a member, paid up member for some time. We had problems because some people come in and want to be now the kind of like the middlemen, making the club to sponsors.
Yeah.
And they just want to make money out of it. They link players to other clubs out there so that they can get a cut out of it. So, and these guys who are supporting the club like Mdavadi and all that give money, but then the money doesn't reach the players because we have middlemen in between. So FC has suffered because of what you are saying. If it was working, it's a club, huge club, it attracts Luya fans and other fans across the country, then people come in there for the money. And say they are middlemen. We know we can get you sponsors. We are the ones who know these people. We have their contacts.
Yes.
So that's how we have.
Would you say what? Okay, you know, Kenyans are very nervous about tribalism. So would you say that ethnic football clubs encourage tribalism?
Well, it's a difficult one. I don't think they do, because if you look at tribalism in the sense that we know it in Kenya, how it works in Kenya, I think they don't do that. They don't, because I think it is a kind of like a carnival. They have a carnivalesque way of performing ethnicity, which starts and ends. It starts somewhere and ends somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a safe way in which you can symbolize ethnic identity. The same way in Europe, you know, you'll not find two people from Manchester fighting on a Wednesday for nothing, no. But maybe on a Saturday in a match, City and United can fight. Fans will fight and say things to each other, and no. But that ends there because that's the space for them to release this kind of, you know, ethnicities, Man City and Man United. Gor and FC always fought in the stadium, Nyayo Stadium and all that. But there was never a chance when you would find them now fighting and touching houses. Seriously, no.
You know, that is true.
They would fight on the pitch, and that is a space where it is like something else stands in the way. It's football.
Yeah.
And the football is finite. It starts and ends. You suffer because you've lost, but the suffering will go eventually.
Yes.
It's a game. Yeah. But now, when you talk about this other ethnicity, which is based on just, you know, people using it, mobilizing ethnic community for their own interest,
power,
that is different. That is difficult because it's difficult to, you can't compare that to the club. Ethnic club, clubs don't create bloody, it's controlled. It's controlled. It is something that is staged and you can control. In the stadium, you can go there and just have the police controlling, and people can watch football, can swear and curse, but they are controlled. But now out here, you have no way of policing ethnicity if it's fanned out here, like here in Eldoret. If you fan it so much, how do you control now Luyas and Kalenjins now when they're out here? If they have clubs fighting, Luya club, Kalenjin club fighting in the stadium, maybe Kipchoge Stadium on Saturday, it starts and ends. But if they are fighting because they want one of their own in power, it will not start and end. It can't.
It just keeps going on. And anyway, now when you look at places like Nairobi, which had the Mathare FC, which was a community club. So I think the point is community.
Community.
Yeah, community. Sometimes a community is ethnic or sometimes it's not.
It's there.
Yeah. And actually, because our identities in Kenya are weaponized, we just don't have public spaces where we can play out our identities. So they've become so weaponized and attached to power.
That is the point, that we don't have carnival spaces.
Yes.
The arts and sports where we can channel these ethnicities. They are just energies, strong energies that are no potential. So once in a while, somebody just comes and taps in them and uses the energy and takes it back. It's a reserved energy capacitor. It's a capacitors that have just stored energy, which people come and, you know, if you remember the road by Soyinka, There's a professor there in the play, and this professor has known how to gang together these layabouts. They just hang around him. He sells them to politicians who come and they want to go and disrupt a rally. The professor sells them to him because they are just there. He wants them to be around him. He makes them feel like they are supposed to be just around him. So I think if those guys had something to do in that play, they are playing football, they are watching or whatever play, they would not do that. But what they have done is to kill all these avenues where we can channel our energies and leave us now as potential ethnized energy to be used. Wow. We don't have any avenue. Don't have any avenue. Football was the best place.
The lack of support for sports and culture is deliberate, because where are politicians going to tap into that energy? That's not having these public performances and carnivals, the carnivalesque, what you're calling carnivalesque. It's nowhere. The politicians have a reserve. And in fact, actually, even Cambridge Analytica, when they came, that's what they said. They said, we just tapped into the well. Those were their words. We dipped into the well and pulled out Aki. Oh dear.
So we are in trouble because we have obstructed, they have closed out all our avenues. The youth, for example, if you walk around the streets, they're just there. They just hang around the bus station or along the streets. They're just waiting for anything to do. You just imagine, on a Monday at midday, if you have a rally somewhere, you'll see people there.
Oh yeah.
They'll be full. But if these guys were preparing for a game in the evening, you can't find them.
They don't have time.
They don't have time. But they have nothing to do. And that is the best for politicians. Politicians want layabouts. People who are just standing army. A standing army that you can just, give instructions at short notice. Now come here. Let's do this, do that, and they do. That's what I have seen. Yeah, it really doesn't work. That's why maybe football can help. European football is helping in a way, because nowadays, like over the weekends or even in the evenings, actually this idea of a thuggery sometimes, those hours when they are watching football, you can't be mugged. Arsenal, when Arsenal is playing, maybe all those thugs are watching. Arsenal fans, they are watching. Until the game is done, nobody will mug you. These are Arsenal fans. So they are there. European football is helping us in some ways. Kind of.
The gender question. Yes. How do women interact with the football, culture? Yeah. The football watching culture.
That's a good question, because I've tried to, in one of my presentations, I think 2 or 3 presentations, actually, not one, I got the question, people asked me, now, you talk about football fandom and men, youth, identities, where are the women?
Yeah.
I told them now that is a bigger question, because even popular culture in general, women are there's this idea of space, gendering spaces. So because they gender space, it becomes difficult. Like these spaces where football is worked mostly would be maybe in those informal video shops in the slums, or would be in bars in the evenings. So you look at the social values around women being out there in a group of men in the slum, it's difficult. Or being in a club unaccompanied, they are labeled as,
loose
prostitutes, loose women. So that's a problem that has been there. But now, in my research, I realized it's also a class thing. Women who can afford their own, they can afford to have their own DSTV in their houses. They can access this football in their houses, they watch. And the others, because of their working, they have kind of like social class identity. They have gone above. They are like men, quote unquote. They have colleagues they work with. They can hang out with them at the level of just colleagues, and they have gone beyond these stereotypes. They watch football. In a study that I read in Zambia by some student, a master student, she saw that as well, that maybe a lawyer or an engineer woman or an architect female would watch football European football, not because she's a football fan entirely, but because she belongs to a class which can afford leisure, public leisure.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And this
yeah.
public leisure,
oh, yes.
she can go to safe places. She can go to places where
yes.
she can get goons
Yeah.
to harass her. So it is really part of her lifestyle and part of her agency. The agency, of course, for women comes with money and, you know, material. If you are materially well off, you get more agency as a woman. If you don't have material wherewithal, your agency is so limited as a woman. So I have noticed in my research, I'm writing a chapter for a book on that particularly, women fans in Kenya. And apart from the women fans, part of my findings were that these women fans are also fans of other cultures that women have gone in, like this culture of celebrating the female body. There are these slay queens, as they call them, quote unquote, who take pictures and share Instagram, showing that they're celebrating their womanhood. You know, we have that kind of popular culture.
Yes.
And, some people really follow it. It's something that is part of people have published work on this, like Gina Ligaga, for example, written something on that, on how now they are shifting the space, gendered spaces. Women were never allowed to celebrate their femininity and beauty and sexuality, but now we have this social media and Instagram, and they do that. And I noticed it is the same kind of pot. Those who are able to like rise above these structures that limit women in leisure, in public spaces, now get it there. They watch football like men, and it's okay, but it's a small proportion. If you come down to the informal settlements, I noticed you get now the older women like who sell changa, they're the ones who also watch football. But because for some reason, they have become asexualized. Because of their the job they do,
that's a hard business. Yeah,
they are much older.
Yeah,
so when they sit with men, and men don't see them as, you know, victims of their, you know, they're not victims to masculine, you know. But the ordinary woman would feel scared. In my ethnography with the women fans, they say they would have to have a boyfriend and go with her to watch football. But even then, the language that they use in those places is a bit coarse.
Yes.
It's carnivalesque language. And sometimes they get uncomfortable. You know, they don't know what to do, participating in the language and kind of ignore their identity, or no, they don't know what to do there. They feel like they are being targeted or laughing at them because it's a carnivalesque sexualized language. So the few women who go there also have to either be hard, rough, and just be tomboy, or have a man and hide behind a man, be like a guest, not a fan as such, a guest of the man. So which really doesn't give them real agency that you say. If you are cultural studies, you are saying that you are looking for agency. They have no agency there. Yes.
It seems also that there's a problem with, you know, what do you call it? Team sports. When in Kenya, I think the runners do well because they are solo, but when it comes to team sports, the team sports really struggle. So I don't think it's not just football. Like me, I follow the news of the women's volleyball. But they do so well. They're always top in the continent, and they just haven't been able to break through the ceiling of the continent because they have no support. And I remember, in fact, I was very surprised. There was a time there was a continental tournament here in Kenya. Cheered the women, they won, but they haven't been able to break through the continental barrier. And I think it's just a support problem. I think they need more coaches, more consistency. It's so sad. Okay, finally, I think I forgot to ask you this, but I want to ask you this for the sake of students. What was your research like? You know, when you're studying the fans, how exactly does that work? You sit with them? Are you with the recording instruments? How do you do that?
Yeah, for my research it kind of like was eclectic. It was dependent on where I was, what I was doing. But basically it's ethnographic. Ethnographic. And these are very well trodden area because we have had fun studies, audience studies, and they always use ethnography. Ethnography as their preferred method of a participant observation, mainly, which of course has its limits, but you can work around them. And they also have in-depth interviews, which also have their limits. You can work around them. And sometimes social survey, but that's just in the beginning when you are establishing the sample size and what have you, you can social survey. But once you are in there now, it's either in-depth interviews or participant observation. But that was when now I was working with the public audiences out there. But when I have the texts, because sometimes I have texts also, I record. I am recording, I have a text.
Yeah.
I have a text. No, I'll just do the normal literary stylistics. Let's say I'm studying the language of the fans. I'll just do the normal imagery, stuff like that, and see how it works there. I kind of textualize it, get some margins, and then now read stylistically. But basically, it has been ethnography. And because I would say not mother discipline really, where I'm coming from, media ethnography, audience studies, generally spectators, studies have been working on ethnographies because you have to be with them, and that therefore means
one of them.
That therefore means sometimes you can't just, like I can't do volleyball girls, women volleyball properly because you have to be with them. You have to seem like you have been accepted because some of the things they do are like esoteric. The language they use, they have to trust you before they become free to express themselves. So it really calls for that. But I was just following on what others have done in this area. You remember somebody called Ian Ang, who did something on television viewers of Dallas in Netherlands. And she was focusing on audiences and the way audiences kind of like always have interpret global media in local ways. So I tried the same, try to interpret audiences of global media locally, and that pushes me to ethnography. And ethnography for us from literature and East African drama, as I said earlier on, we are still learning how it works because apparently it's not just a methodology. Ethnography is an area of study on its own. People write ethnographies, so it's deep. We just apply it, but it's something that we keep on learning from anthropology. And in a sense, then I accept that I'm now no longer just a literature scholar. I am inter or anti-disciplinary, if you like, because I keep on using anthropology, media, ethnography, sociology, performance studies. So I really float in between and therefore becoming anti-disciplinary, so to speak. Yes.
Oh, wow. I hope we can have another conversation now where we'll delve into Kenyan football and the history and how it has evolved over the decades, because that's something that I'm really interested in. So I want to say thank you so much for giving us time. I don't know if you want to say something to the audience.
First of all, to you, thank you for having me here to talk about football in a serious, people always say if you talk about football in a serious, arena like this, you are trying to play with serious stuff. So thank you for allowing me to come in a serious space to talk football, which is play, really. Thank you so much for having me. And to the rest of the viewers, my viewers, for now, what we are doing, just to say we have this, football, we have maybe film, we have television studies, that we have now a new area of study, that knowledge is not just that which is, hallowed high culture. Knowledge is the everyday.
Yes.
Every day is part of knowledge. And like from cultural studies, that people who claim to have knowledge, we expect them to use their intelligence as a resource to study the everyday and to interpret and see and cover the various unequal relationships on gender, on race, politics. There's so much in the everyday using the so-called formal, intellectual procedures. So for me, I have been working in football, hoping to bring these resources, intellectual, and help us to see how people bargain for power, bargain for gender identity, and whatever it is in football. Just as you would read maybe novel, African novel, East African drama, and see the same. So it is an area that for students, like master students should be free to try out. Sociologists, for example, anthropology, even literature, they should try out looking for knowledge in these areas and contribute to that, because we are late. We are running behind other people out there in the industry of knowledge production because of our fear of the everyday.
Yeah, in fact, people find me they call me radical, but actually the issue is that I talk about the everyday. I don't see the point of talking about big theory if you're not going to relate it to things that Kenyans live through. So I hope
that is it.
Yeah. So I hope we are going to see some changes in our education system, but we have to overcome this fear of being more imaginative with the studies. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm calling you again in another month or so that now we can talk about Kenyan football.
That will be nice, because by then I think I'll have also now gone Kenyan football, gone deep into it a bit. The status as it is currently. Yeah, that would be good.
And where we've come from. Yeah, so like I'm always telling my son about football and how it was nowadays, but I don't think he quite connects. So I think it would be good. It would be good to tell Kenyans, the younger Kenyans, where we are coming from. The days of Peter Dao, Mahmoud Abbas, Joe Kadenge.
Yes, you know them.
Figures. I used to follow.
So you are one.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been following Kenyan
So
football.
you stopped somewhere. Where did you stop following Kenyan football? Where did you stop?
It was around 2000 time, you're saying.
That time you had the KFF was like banned for some time by FIFA. There were issues. That time there was Bala as the Minister of Sport.
Yeah,
things went bad. That was the worst time. Worst time in Kenyan football. We had
we are going to talk about that.
Government interference, so much of it, and things just went south from there on.
Yeah,
so we'll talk about that
time because I remember thinking, why is a minister going to FIFA? I'm not understanding.
No, they were misapplication of their power. This guy didn't know that FIFA is supposed to be a governing body on its own, governing football as an area of its own. So they were, and most of those guys also didn't know what they're supposed to do as ministers, government ministers. They didn't know their job specification, so they were overreaching. Yeah, because he went banning FIFA, and now banning KFF in Kenya, and FIFA banned Kenyan football. Around that time, and we had to go through this again, and we get back to them, and so many issues. So our Kenyan football has been, since the turn of the millennium, we have not been doing well. Only one club wins the league, Gor Mahia. Only one club, I think. Only once Tusker won once, and Sofapaka also won once. But the rest have been Gor Mahia. The others cannot win. For many factors we'll talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
All right. Thank you so much. It has been such a good conversation. I knew it would be good, and I look forward to us talking again in a few weeks or so.
Thank you. It was the same with me here.